I'm going to take you through the retail history in the tax preparation industry. And I'm going to start with H&R Block it started with H&R Block in Sears. And when Sears was a great organization, they had they were a Fortune 500 company. They had the Sears catalog. They were the envy of virtually every other retailer in the country, if not in the world. And back in 1973 tax season, when I was still in the Buffalo market at H&R Block, H&R Block had a contract with Sears west of the Mississippi. They did not have a contract with Sears east of the Mississippi. And there was another vendor in there, but Sears had noticed that Block was doing far better. So they threw out the vendor east of the Mississippi and installed H&R Block. We were concerned as managers that the new Sears locations that we were getting, where we had to pay 20% of the revenue as our rent, we had to pay 20% of the revenue. We were concerned that customers from our storefronts would go to the Sears locations, and now we would have extra costs because in the storefront we weren't paying a percentage. We were just paying our monthly rent. We weren't paying a percentage of revenue, whereas Sears we were paying the 20%. So it turns out to be a false concern because we quickly learned that the Sears customer is different than the storefront customer. They come in for a lot of reasons. One is their shopping and that was their hangout before Walmart, and they would go into Sears once or twice a week, and that's where they did a lot of their business. They had other vendors like Allstate, eyeglasses, Dean Witter selling mutual funds and stocks, and Avis rental car, and they had a lot of other vendors in the location, and that attracted the customers to go into the location. So it was a completely different type of customer, and it was a great boost to our districts when we brought Sears in. One thing that totally surprised us and went against our common sense was that even though H&R Block was doing about 1 out of every 7 tax returns in the United States, then only about 1 out of every 15 Sears employees came in and had their tax return. That's despite a 20% discount. So they're getting a 20% discount. It's right on site. They can drop off their paperwork during the day while they're working and pick it up at the end of the day, or do it during the day. They don't have to go anywhere. And it was being underutilized. So in researching, we found that the common belief was that Sears owned H&R Block or what had a relationship with H&R Block, that H&R Block would share the financial information of the employees if they did their tax return done there. And they didn't want them to know whether they were married or divorced or had children or had side jobs. They didn't want them to know, they didn't want their employer to know everything about them. And so it was actually a detriment to, as far as the employees went, and it went against our common sense. We thought, well, if there's 150 employees in this store, then we're going to get like a third of them to be our customers. Well, it was actually more like a 15th of them. Like instead of 50, it was 10. So that was a lesson learned in the Sears location. So back then, Walmart was small, Kmart was small. We're talking 1973. It wasn't until the late 80s that all of a sudden Kmart and Walmart were beginning to grow rapidly. And by the time we hit about 1988, for a minute there were more Kmarts in the country than any. They got bigger than Sears, but it didn't take 10 minutes, it seemed like, before Walmart passed Kmart. So we're going into the early 90s, and now Sears still has their 800 or 900 locations, and Walmart and Kmart had about 1,500 locations each. So we had in 1993, we as part of our strategic planning, we had about 800 locations, and H&R Block had 9,000, of which 600 of them were in Sears. And we looked at and said, wow, the traffic count in a Walmart or a Kmart is triple the traffic count in a Sears, and it's a little lower income, which is where we were targeting, a lower income than certainly than a Macy's or a Nordstrom's or one of those brands, but even a little bit less income than a average Sears customer. And so we thought, wow, perfect customer base. And I had been jealous of that relationship that Block had with Sears from 82 until 93, when I started Jackson Hewitt, until 93, and we decided as a team, we had 800 locations, 800 storefronts approximately. And we decided that we need to be in Walmart. And I don't remember today whether we knew at the time. I believe we knew at the time that H&R Block had tested in 1993. Yeah, I'm certain we knew that. H&R Block tested in about 25 to 50 locations. They tested in Walmart. No one, Kmart did not have any tax preparer in there. So in 1993, in our planning, we decided that our goal was to be in Walmart within 3 years, or Kmart, one of the two within 3 years. So as part of that process, I visited in February of 1993, I visited both Walmart headquarters and Kmart headquarters. First, I visited Walmart, and I was a bit taken aback, or I learned a valuable lesson that, Sears had headquarters. They had this beautiful tower, the largest building in Chicago, the Sears Tower, this beautiful facility. Well, I went to Bentonville, Arkansas, to see the headquarters, to visit the Walmart representative, and thankfully they both took my call, and I went to Walmart headquarters, and it was in an old factory building. And not only, so it was very low quality. It wasn't polished at all. It was very low quality. And they set you in a room with the tables that they sold in Walmart. There were about 8-foot tables that couldn't have been $10, and the straight chairs that couldn't have been $5. And that's where you went when you met as any vendor, whether you're with General Mills or Campbell's or whatever vendor you were. You met under the most generic conditions that you can imagine, very low cost conditions. They didn't spend any money on frills. And so went and visited Walmart, and had a very positive, a little negative, and a little positive. The meeting was, in the meeting, the people we were talking to, I tried to argue this position, that we needed to be in there because of this reason. That I said, here in Bentonville, Arkansas, where you have an H&R Block in the Walmart, and you have an H&R Block in the little town, because there were 9,000 H&R Blocks, and there wasn't a Jackson Hewitt within 200 miles. And I said, everyone in Bentonville, Arkansas knows where the H&R Block office is. And opening a second H&R Block office is unlikely to get you new business. As much new business as if we put a Jackson Hewitt here. There's no Jackson Hewitt within 100 miles. So we're going to get you more business because we're a new game in town. And so the conclusion of the quick meeting, the 20, 25, 30-minute meeting was, well, we tested with Block this year and we're going to expand that test, but we don't even know if we like the income tax industry yet. We're just testing it. And so that was disheartening. But at the same time, they said, however, if we decide to stay in the industry, we like to have two different vendors. And now I'm floating on air because there's only two national companies. There was H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt. So if they liked it, then we would be obviously the choice for the second brand. So we're left there with mixed feelings, right? I was worried that Block could screw up the test and they're not going to like income tax. And so I would never get my shot. But also I knew that if they liked income tax, that they were the high probability, 95, 99%, that Jackson Hewitt would get to go into Walmart. So we left the meeting, and on that note, the person that we were dealing with at Walmart headquarters liked us enough or respected us enough that Sam's Club was obviously separate organization, separate headquarters, right next door to Walmart in their own little separate place. But Sam's Club was interested in testing tax preparation. So he liked us enough, or they had offered to Block, and Block turned it down, to test in Sam's Club. So that was in February 1993. In 1994 tax season, we opened in about 13 or 14 Sam's Clubs. So that was our first introduction into the Walmart family, that we were in Sam's Club. At the same time, roughly the same time, they were experimenting with a local guy who had a business called Copy, Pack, and Ship. And it was this little Arkansas vendor who didn't have a lot of money, and he was in about 6 or 8 Walmarts, but he didn't have a franchise system, and didn't have a lot of money. And so the Walmart also introduced us to him and said, if you want, you can partner with him and put a tax office in his Copy, Pack, and Ships inside of Walmart. So in parallel to opening in Sam's Club, we partnered, and we began as a partnership of putting a tax office in his Copy, Pack, and Ships that were in Walmart. But we eventually, very quickly, he wasn't able to staff up. So we purchased that company. We purchased Copy, Pack, and Ship from the owner. And now we're offering in Walmart, but then we offered as a franchise also in storefronts around the country. And we had some experience in Copy, Pack, and Ship type locations, mailbox, etc. type locations. We were in out of our 800 locations, about 24 were in those types of franchise companies, where we had a location in a local a mailbox, etc., or one of the several brands in that industry. So we tested that in again a effort to get our foot in the door with Walmart. Well, so we did that in tax season 94, and then along came December of 94, and the that was the year the IRS made a huge change, and it's too complicated to get into, but and I've talked about it before on this, is that they stopped giving the direct deposit indicator on a refund. And so H&R Block was scared, and they had told Walmart that were going to be in 100 locations. And along came December, and they pulled out of over 50 locations. So Walmart came to us in December and said, can you take any of these 50 locations? We have stores and store managers that are waiting for a tax office, and H&R Block has withdrawn. Can you take any of them? And we scrambled and were able to take somewhere near 17 or 18 of the locations. We, by hook or by crook, by whatever it took, we wanted to get in as many as we could. But of course, you have to do it well, or you're not going to be invited back. So we couldn't just shoot, a shotgun and just take everything. We had to do it where we could control it, where we had franchisees and where we had staff that could do a decent job. So that in tax season 95, we were still in about 14 Sam's Clubs. We were in copy package ship, about a dozen of those. And we were also we were seasonally in Walmart, which was our dream from the first day that we went there. And so before I get into that, I do want to talk about my visit to Kmart headquarters, because in February of 1993, not only did I visit Walmart headquarters, I went to Kmart headquarters. And as I recall, it was in Troy, Michigan. And we got there early. I'm almost always early. We were over an hour early. And right across the street was a mall. The mall was so fancy that it felt to me like the workers were wearing tuxedos. The ones that changed the garbage cans or the waste cans, they were like in tuxedos. It was just had all the biggest and best locations. It had Tiffany and Macy's and all Louis Vuitton, and it was just a very expensive area. And right across the street was Kmart headquarters. And in Kmart headquarters, it was an all black glass, beautiful building. And went inside, and there was a huge waterfall inside, and it was the ground, the floor where you walked in, it was so beautiful and expensive. I said to the person I was with, the average Kmart customer is paying like a penny extra because of this beautiful atrium location at the foot of the beautiful Kmart building. So it was a total difference in management style. And it was one other difference was, but at both locations, at Kmart and at Walmart, they had put their 5-year goals on the wall. And at Walmart, both of them had about 15, 16, 1,700 locations. And at Walmart, they were going to grow 500 locations in the next 5 years. At Kmart, they were going to grow 100 locations in the next 5 years. So different goals, different way of expending money. They spent money on their employees and their headquarters staff at Kmart versus the customer. And so it was clear, it was clear who was going to win the battle in the marketplace is the company that was focused on the customer. And this was 1993, rather than the niceties and the extras, the creating a beautiful environment at headquarters for the employees. So next, what happened is within 2 years, we did such a good job at Jackson Hewitt that we got a monopoly to be in Walmart. And so H&R Block was thrown out of Walmart. So this is about 1997, 98. And from 1997 until today, there's the only company that's had a significant presence in Walmart is Jackson Hewitt. Now, along the way, we had a chance at Liberty to go in, and obviously when Liberty got big enough to take over hundreds of locations in Walmart, I went back to Walmart in the early 21st century, and call it 2007, 8. We went back to Walmart and said, "Hey, I'm John Hewitt. I founded Jackson Hewitt. You're happy with Jackson Hewitt. How about giving us a chance at Liberty to go into the stores where Jackson Hewitt doesn't have locations?" Unfortunately, the Jackson Hewitt, they were loyal, as they probably should be, to Jackson Hewitt, and so we only got the leftovers of the locations that Jackson Hewitt didn't want. And so by then, Jackson Hewitt was in over 1,500 Walmarts, and when they knew that we also had, they told Jackson Hewitt obviously that Liberty Tax is going to be able to, we're going to also have Liberty Tax in our Walmarts. Then it scared the franchisees of Jackson Hewitt to take even more locations. So they grew pretty quickly to 3,000 locations. So we tested a while for a couple of years with Walmart at Liberty. We never got more than about 100 locations, but we just got the leftovers from the stores that Jackson Hewitt didn't want. And then they really killed the deal. About a few years later, they decided, and it's negotiating with Walmart. It's like negotiating with God. There's no negotiation almost. And the current management decided that they were going to change the rent, which was very reasonable, about $7,500 per tax season. That included everything. Obviously, it included all utilities, and you would get this nice 60 or 80 square foot area for $7,500 during the tax season, with 40 or 50,000 customers walking through a month, Walmart customers that you would have access to. That it was a very reasonable $7,500 for the season. They decided to charge rent that was market compatible, and so some of our rents went from $7,500 to $20,000 or $25,000, and we were just building these offices out, so they weren't established and didn't have big name recognition. And it takes a few years, especially in the tax preparation business, to get brand name, because you're only there for 3 months. It's not like you're there 12 months long. And so we actually backed out of Walmart. And so today, Jackson Hewitt is still in 3,000 Walmarts. They do 1 million tax returns and have revenue of $250 million. And it all started with that first trip in February of 1993, where we were told, "No, we don't even know if we like the tax industry, and if we do." But got the good news that if we do, we like to have 2 different vendors. So it started with a no, and then we used the Sam's Club to prove ourselves. We used Copy, Pack, and Ship to prove ourselves. We used the emergency where Block backed out of 50 locations to prove ourselves, and we won the day. And now it's 50% of Jackson Hewitt offices are in Walmart because of those decisions we made, out of the box, thoughtful decisions we made, and perseverance. We were unstoppable. We were going to be in Walmart in 3 years. We made it, and it changed the face of Jackson Hewitt forever. And of course, Jackson Hewitt, and that's one of the reasons, 20 years ago, became a $1 billion company. And it started with that first visit to Bentonville, Arkansas in February of 1993. I do want to say one other thing I learned about customer service from Walmart and culture and attitude in that journey. Before we went to Bentonville, there was one Walmart here in the Virginia Beach market. It was in Chesapeake. And we asked the Walmart manager to lunch. And I learned a valuable lesson at that luncheon. And he came in and we were all suited up back then. In the 90s, we all suit and tie, and we didn't change that until we started Liberty in the 21st century, where we stopped doing suits and became casual. But my impression was he wouldn't have been worn the cardigan sweater, except for he has a lunch at the most exclusive lunch place in Virginia Beach. And he told a great story. He said, the manager of the local Walmart said, there was a guy came in to a Walmart, and he had this old Franklin stove that had been made in the 20s. And it was all beat up, and he said, the employee said, and Walmart back then they were a much better company even than they are today. They had a 100% money back guarantee. He said he went back into that department and said, the employee said, just pick another one and take it. And here, you can exchange this for this stove. Well, this stove was made long before Walmart ever existed. So it obviously was not purchased at a Walmart. But he said, the store manager said that employee was Mr. Sam. Now, it was funny that Sam Walton had died about a year before this, and he still called him Mr. Sam. And I was thinking to myself forever that if this store manager feels that that's the way that Sam Walton wants a customer to be treated, that's how he's going to treat customer. And that customer service that is set, the example is set by the leadership. And he even was so respectfully called him Mr. Sam. He didn't say that was Sam Walton or even Mr. Walton. He said it was Mr. Sam. And so I realized that why Walmart was Walmart, and they were going to be, and were going to be an incredible organization because of that culture that had been started and spread by Sam Walton. So that's the story of Sears and Walmart. Well, I didn't finish Sears. Sears is on the verge of bankruptcy, and H&R Block left them 12 years ago because Sears has just the business kept going down and down and down, and Sears came to us and to Jackson Hewitt about 12 years ago and offered us to buy the H&R Block relationship and to put our stores. And we decided that it wasn't worth very much because it was that the Sears stores were declining rapidly, the traffic was declining, and H&R Block was going to, of course, they were going to send notices to every customer who had been coming into the Sears to try to get them to go to one of their locations outside of the Sears. So it was going to be problematic. So I think my recollection is that Jackson Hewitt paid a couple $1 million for that relationship, and it was a bad decision. They were out of Sears within 2 years. So there's no more tax services in Sears, and so that's the retail situation in the United States. Over the years we did test Kmart, but again, Kmart revenue and volume, it was reasonable, and Liberty Tax was in in many Kmarts, but as they began to tank and be overridden and beat up by both Walmart and Target, they it stopped being lucrative, and so um, Liberty left the relationship with Kmart 10 years ago. So it's today, it's still thriving, Walmart and Jackson Hewitt. Now let me talk about Walmart Canada. We went to Canada in 1998, and remember, we had been at Jackson Hewitt. We had a monopoly in Walmart US, and so there was Walmarts in Canada, and we wanted to get in Walmart Canada with Liberty because Jackson Hewitt's never gone to Canada. So when we started Liberty in Canada in 1998, there was a vendor, an insurance company that had a relationship with Walmart, and they also offered tax in their location. So, but they didn't do a very good job of tax because they didn't know tax. So I went up to negotiate with a guy named Steve Sardo, and Steve was running that insurance broker that had a relationship. They were in about, I'm going to say 10 to 15 Walmarts, and eventually we were able to convince Steve that we would do a better job in doing the tax work than his insurance guys, and then and we would share the revenue with him, and so we were able to get that relationship. But then I hired Steve to be CEO of Liberty Canada, and so for 5 years he helped us grow Liberty Canada to about 300 locations, and Liberty Canada became one of the top 100 retail chains in Canada. So we had built one of the top 100 in US. Now we were top 100 in Canada. Plus we had a robust Walmart relationship. So Steve took that over, and he was with us for about 5 years. Years later, the Walmart decided that they would test H&R Block in Canada in addition to Liberty, and eventually gave the contract to H&R Block Canada. So H&R Block beat Liberty Tax in Canada and took away the Walmart relationship. So today, last I know, the H&R Block has the relationship in Canada, and Jackson Hewitt has it in the United States. So, but we went around the normal way, and instead of when we went to Walmart and tried to get into Walmart Canada, even though I had just been in Walmart US with Jackson Hewitt, they said, you have to talk to this insurance company and see if you can work with them. And so we did. And just like the copy, pack, and ship situation where we offered both two services within a storefront, we were doing the same thing in year-round locations in Canada, and we were able to get that Canadian relationship. And it was in both our Canada and US situations, it was very helpful in bringing in new franchisees, because it's the toughest place to get a new franchisee is in a rural area, somewhere that's a population of under 25,000 and not near a large city. But if you're in Walmart, I mean, that's a gold mine. And so we were able to sell small areas, cities all over the country that we wouldn't have been able to sell as franchises because we had that Walmart relationship, both US and Canada. So today, I'll say one thing, that we do have a relationship in Puerto Rico, that ATAX is in H&R Block had a monopoly of Walmart in Puerto Rico. And also our insurance company is our car insurance and our auto and and residential insurance is, and our P&C is has an opportunity to go into year-round storefronts in Walmart US. So those type of relationships help us, give us credibility. And being in a Walmart is like you getting a seal of approval that if customers understand that if they're allowing a vendor in their space, then they're going through a rigorous testing to make sure that they're quality vendors. So it's a seal of approval, easier to bring in new franchisees, and that's my story. The retail history from 1973, when I was involved with Sears, H&R Block until 2024. And lessons learned over the years. Thank you for your interest, and have a great day, everyone.